He was born, and immediately when he was taken out of me, um, he was passed by me, and I gave him a kiss, and then they took him to the nursery. He was taken to the nursery, and that was the last time I saw him.
So the next morning, what happened?
The next morning, they bring all the babies back to the moms in their rooms. So at noon, I got my baby, and when I saw him, the first impression was, this is not the same baby that I saw last night. And I looked at him, and I remembered that the baby that I saw was just like my husband, and this baby did not look like my husband. And I started to tell all the staff that was in the hospital, and they all insisted and said, no, this is your baby. You were medicated last night after the C-section. They put like extra medication on me. So I was not, they said, you were not aware. This is your baby. I asked the doctors. They said, this is your baby. So I'm like, okay, this is my baby.
But your mother's instinct told you it was not, and yet still you took that child, you brought that child home here to Texas.
Yes, I took the baby on the fourth day at the hospital. I was going home, and I had my friends came, and I told them till that day, look, do you think they changed my baby? And my friends would say, no, it's the same baby. I asked like at least 20, 30, I don't know how many people, everybody that came, and they all said, no, this is your baby. So I went home, and then my husband came from Texas. He was in Texas, and the baby, the days started to go by, and his features, his skin, everything started to change, and he started to not look anything like neither one of us. So I had that thought in my heart, in my mind. I was nursing the baby. I was taking care of him, loving him like ours. And I started to fall in love with the baby. And this feeling was so difficult because you love this baby like your baby, but then inside I had the thought, what if this is not my baby? What if this is not my child? Where is my child? Where is my baby? And I tried to put that thought away. I said, no, this is not real. This cannot happen to me. This is Hollywood. This is the movies. And that thought came back and forth every day, every week. I could not resist that thought, that feeling. And I took the decision to go and make a DNA test. So 1 week before, I never told my husband anything. I never mentioned to him. I would just ask him, hey, do you think the baby looks like us? And, like...
And what was your answer, Rich?
I just accepted it as my child. And now I look back at the pictures right around the time that we came to Dallas when he was 3 months old. And I'm shocked that I never suspected, because you can see that it's just obviously not my child if you look at some of the pictures. How I don't know how I didn't ask myself. You don't think about these things.
I think we were in love. We were in love with the baby. And even when I did the DNA test, I thought I was betraying him. That was a feeling I had. I'm betraying my son, but I cannot live with this. And I said, well, I thought if this is my son, this DNA test is just going to prove that he's mine, and this thought has to abandon me.
When the DNA test results came back, what did they say?
0.0% the mother of the baby.
It was impossible that that was your son.
Impossible, 0.0%.
And how did you feel at that moment?
I just fell on the floor. My body couldn't even resist. The pain, the thought that the baby that I had been nursing, taking care of, loving him, bathing him, that he was not mine. And then I had another thought which came with it, where's my baby? So I had two thoughts. What is gonna happen with this baby, and where's my baby? So I just fell on the floor, started to cry and cry and cry, and then my husband came and he's like, "What happened?" And I'm like, "How am I gonna tell him? What am I gonna tell him?" And I couldn't even speak for minutes and minutes and give him the news that way.
And Rich, how did you feel when Mercy told you?
I was just overwhelmed and just confused. I didn't even know how to process. I remember the first trauma to me was, oh my goodness, I have a child, and my child is somewhere out there in the world. Where is he? Who's taking care of him? What happened to him? Why did this happen? Am I ever going to see him again? And I just felt like a panic that my only child was lost or stolen, or I didn't know what it was. And that was the concern. It was after that that I started to process, we might lose this child that we've been raising for 3 months. And I remember that was sort of the second trauma of the incident, is that we might lose one. And I remember in the beginning, it was so difficult to talk about losing Jacob, wasn't it? And so we started saying to each other and hoping that we would be able, our hope in the beginning was that we would find our real child, but we would also be able to keep the one that we had raised for 3 months, and that we would have 2 children, was our hope. But I remember I was the first one that started saying it, like, look, if this child has a legitimate family, we're going to have to give him away. And I think I was the one that accepted that first.
They did track down your biological child. They did DNA tests on other babies born that
The
day in
same
the
day
hospital.
at the hospital, yeah.
And they found your biological child. And then very quickly, I think, within a matter of hours, you had to hand over the child you'd been caring for.
I remember that the judge called me into her room and she said, "We found your baby." And I when she told me that, I thought, like, I couldn't even, her words were like, "What? You found my baby?" I couldn't understand it. I couldn't believe it. It was something wonderful.
Great relief.
And then my lawyer in the car, he said, we were celebrating. Can you imagine, after all these weeks looking for him, and we were like crazy and calling everybody. It was a big party, and my lawyer said, "We have to bring the other baby." And I'm like, "What?" He said, "Yeah, we found their family, and you have to hand them in." And I couldn't believe it. That's when I realized, until he told me, "You have to give the other baby," I was like, "Oh my." And we got there and we had to like rush. We were rushed in. We have to go quickly, just bring the baby, and we barely got time to say goodbye. And I got all his clothes. And we took him in the office and we handed him in. And that was the most difficult part, I think, of all the situation. And then at the same time, it's so sad, we got our baby, and that was so happy. Another feeling, we finally saw him, and when he saw us, he was smiling and he was laughing, and it was so something happened really beautiful. He was dressed just like my husband, and Jacob was dressed like his dad too. We didn't know each other, we don't know anything, but the babies, when we took them and we switched, they each were dressed like their father. It was really nice, and we celebrated. We took Moses home, and it was beautiful. It was a blessing of God. I got to nurse him too without any problems. He adjusted. He never cried. He's
amazing, his adjustment, how peaceful he was.
Very peaceful and happy and smiling and very happy, very happy. And when we got home, we realized that we didn't have any clothes for him because we took all the other clothes for the other baby. And we're like, oh my, what are we going to do tonight? Because we got home very late. And then our friends started to come and bring gifts and, but you don't even think about that, Your thoughts are like, it's like an emotional roller coaster.
Do you have any contact with Jacob now?
The last time we saw was when we got their footprints and birth certificate.
And we got to spend about 2 hours with the other family. And
Yeah.
I mean,
took a lot of pictures and videos.
Do you think you will continue to have a place in his life over the years, or is that not going to be
I
possible?
think so. And
We
I
would
certainly
like
hope
that.
so. Yeah,
Yeah.
we would. I really would love to see justice in this situation, Matthew. I'd like to know what happened. How did this happen? Because I don't want to see it happen to another person. It's done a terrible financial damage and emotional damage to us. But we're here, we survived, and God has helped us and comforted us through the process. And everything is turning out okay.